and I'm listening to the net control. And he's sending out, he says, K, go ahead. So the next guy would pick up his, we had coded signs, like your sign may be LD, we'll say, for example, or BF. And so here comes BF back. He goes,
Okay, so what happens is there's only one duct that the egg comes down, and it's the same duct that the sperm has to swim up to fertilize the ovum, okay? So what happens is the female retains, she's on a very tight time schedule. So that she has a mating and retains some of the sperm, and some of it swims up for the first ovum. And then at 5 o'clock at night, she lays her first egg, 10 days later roughly. Lays her first egg at 5 o'clock. The instant that the egg is passed, she releases the sperm. Okay? And it swims up, fertilizes the next ovum. And the next day, nothing is happening except the white and the shell is being put on the second egg. And at 1 o'clock the following day, she lays the second egg. All right, now, the female can hold that sperm, retain that sperm for 18 days. So when they come back from a race, I try to refresh them I give them herbal tea, and I have to have to make it just like you make human tea. It's not in a tea bag, but you boil it and you strain it off, and I give it to them in their drinking water. The first day back from the race, sort of cleans out their system. Going 300 miles, which is not a very long race, but it's not a long distance, but I start to make the feed more fatty for 300 miles and up. By the time they get to 500 miles, it's pretty high in fat, the diet. At the end of the week, not the beginning of the week, they get more fiber and stuff like that to clean out their system, and a little bit of protein just to put some fat back on.
Fascinating, and that's part of the country that hardly anybody ever sees, talks about the real glades. And when you talk about glades, generally most people talk about the Everglades in the sense of preserving the glades, or doing this about the glades, or doing that about the glades. But what about the people that actually live in the glades? Did you ever meet any? I did. I'll tell you. You better believe it. And it's a special breed of man. That he is so much part of nature that her husband, for example, the birds that fly around, he can tell every bird that's ever been in the glades just by shape and by form, because it's part of his life, just as much as the average city guy can tell a cab coming from 4 miles away. He knows. And so Bud, Bud knew about the glades. It was his turf.
Oh yeah, I have teams. I have an A and B team. When I get to 300 miles like I am now, I fly one week and another one the next week. But with young birds, they only go up to 300 miles. I fly them every race. If they can't keep up, that's it. I don't have them.
Off to the glue farm, the glue factory?
No.
Right.
Other people take them from me. It's just that to win a race and be competitive, the bird has to be in top health condition. have binocular vision. And when they put these opaque contact lenses on them, they came home, but they couldn't see where the coop was, but they knew it was below them, and they just sort of drifted down onto the grass around the coop. But because they couldn't see, they didn't know exactly where the landing board was and stuff like that. They also have they have a set of lungs, but they also have 7 air sacs in their body to keep them light and to keep their blood 100% oxygenated all the time, even when they're at rest. And the heartbeat is 200 beats a minute at rest, but it goes up to 600 beats a minute while they're flying. And for as long as they're flying, it's 600 beats a minute. So they can fly for 15, 17 hours straight. They don't stop for water or food. And their wing beat is, you're talking 4 to 6 beats a second. And because of the high body temperature, they repair themselves very quickly. I've gotten a couple of birds home where the crop had been ripped open. They hit a wire. And so they would pick a piece of corn and just go down their throat and fall on the ground. And I'd have to take the bird and I just use regular cotton thread, sew them up. And just a few days later, because of the high body temperature, they repair themselves very rapidly. They just form a scab, it falls off along with the thread, and they're back to normal.
Almost like jungle-like quality of the glades at night in summertime. It's the smell of the water and the smell of. There's a bird smell. The greatest collection of birds in the world live down there. It's fantastic bird life, and you can smell it. It's funny. You really can. I'm serious. You can. There's a live quality. It's almost like when you go into the birdhouse at the Bronx Zoo or something. There's a feeling of life and heat and vegetation and all. So I walk under. Now this is what happened. I walk under this tree. It's dark out in the parking lot. Just a little light on the side of this little diner that I'd had my turtle steak in. I walk back to the car and I'm by myself. All of a sudden I hear a sound. And at first I thought it was something with the car. I couldn't figure it out. Then I thought, there might be a snake. There's plenty of rattlers in that area, plenty of snakes, because the sound is going. I look around. I was waiting. Whoa, it was a very, very cutting sound. You just couldn't help but look and wait and see what's going to happen, because it was not a casual sound. It was not a sound that could be something, water pouring out of the side of the building or some kind of a dripping faucet or something, because it was definite. It went and stopped. And it seemed to come from all around, everywhere. I waited again. By God, that's coming from up there, above me. And sure enough, in this tree, under which my car was parked, right under this tree, under this big tree, I see just a slight flicker of something moving, just a slight movement, because there was a little street light that was right next to this little diner that was casting a faint glow over this tree, and I saw something move. I looked up in there. I see these eyes. My God, it's an owl. And sure enough, it was a big barn owl.
This is basically the microwave transmitter that was glued with silicone rubber to the back of a homing pigeon, and it was tracked twice from 300 miles away, Pittsburgh back to New Jersey, and once from 200 miles away. This little antenna sends a signal up to a NOAA satellite. It's about 550 miles up. And that signal is then downloaded to a ground station outside of Paris, where the signal's Doppler shift is noted. And from that shift, it tells you what longitude and latitude, where the signal came from in terms of longitude and latitude. And that information is sent to me over the internet. So in about 20 minutes, I get the information of where the bird was 20 minutes ago. And it weighs 1 ounce, the whole thing. The antenna is a disconnect so that when the bird is in the coop, is not banging everybody in the head with the antenna. Here were the three different tracks that it took. This is Pittsburgh is about here, so it's just south of Pittsburgh, 300 miles. The first track in November '99, it had headwinds. The bird couldn't make it. He had to go down overnight, which was actually a bonus for us because the satellites keep going around even at night, and we were able to get multiple hits to find out that the bird was in the same spot all night, naturally. And then the next morning it started to fly again, and here's a hit, another hit, and back to New Jersey where we are. So that was roughly 10% longer than the 300-mile survey distance that it went. And then I did it again in April of the following year, and the straight line home, since the weather was calm, there was no wind, it was almost on exactly a straight line. And the only reason it went in here was the wind started to shift, and it followed a valley all the way home. And then the third time was in April of the following year from 200 miles in northern Pennsylvania, came home. Safflower, high in fat, and there's some barley in there too. So corn gives them carbohydrates, safflower gives them fat, peas give them protein, and the barley gives them fiber.
And then, I'm watching this owl, and just as I did so, something was... There was a flutter, and one went right over my shoulder, and he was joined by another owl who flew from somewhere behind me, out of the darkness, out of the Everglades, and just glided right up, and he sat next to the first one, these two owls, identical, looking down at me. And both of them start that. Well, I looked up there, and I said, "My God, there's an owl. There's another one right next to him." And then I became aware, gradually, as my eyes began to adjust to this darkness, I began to see there must have been 5 or 10 owls in that tree, all spotted in different parts of it, and all of them looking down at me. Doing nothing, just looking. And once in a while, one would go, well, I got in the car, I started the motor, and I carefully backed out from under the owls and drove down to Graffle, turned right on that little road that ran right through the Everglades. I drove down through that darkness, and so dark you couldn't even believe how dark it was. And back of me, I could see the neon lights in the rear view mirror of this little restaurant. All it said was, "Eat."
I'm not feeding them grit now because I hold back the grit for a couple of days before a race. Otherwise, they're just carrying the grit is just dead weight for them. But when I do give them grit, I also supplement it with magnetite, which is a natural iron ore that's been found in the brains of migratory birds. So I figured my birds are migratory also. They migrate on a daily basis back home. So I feed them magnetite. Although I did a national study with 45 people across America, including Alaska, and the results showed that there was no improvement in homing ability, even with the magnetite. But people that did notice that their birds were a lot healthier with the magnetite, and one reason could be, since the magnetite is an iron ore, the iron was like an iron supplement in their diet for the hemoglobin, makes the carry a little better oxygen around in their blood.
And you could tell,
each guy, you could really tell each guy by the sound of his fist. And so I'm scrunched down there, see. And I'm listening to the net control. You hear, and he's sending out, he says, K, go ahead. So the next guy would pick up his, we had coded signs, like your sign may be LD, we'll say, for example, or BF. And so here comes BF back. He goes, he is requesting some equipment, and he is repeating it twice. Please send such and such, such and such. Please send so-and-so. And then he finally winds up, he says, he goes like this. That is BF, is just signed and is standing by in the net, and now he's turned it over to the NCS, who will then pass it on to the next station. Well, we're all sitting there, and I'm listening to this thing. I'm listening to, there's about 10 or 15 stations in the net, and some of them are very faint because they may be 20, 25 miles away, and the rain is coming in, and it's drifting down. It's a bad day. When all of a sudden it happened, some station, one of the net stations, way off in the boonies someplace, KA, KA stands by. He goes like this. He says, Herb copied that. So he stands by. Well, then all of a sudden, without any warning, another signal came in, quite faint, and with a bad rasp on it. And it starts sending obscenity.
Phoenix area again, Chicago. Quite often you hear a bunch of Argentinian stations in here. I got the antenna pointed to Japan now. So if I hear Argentina. Fistman, there's your fist group.
And it was just natural. It was as natural to me as breathing. And to this day, I still work code quite a bit, CW on ham band, but today, code to me is as natural as speaking. In fact, in some ways, even more natural, because the thoughts seem to fall more in line. They seem to have more consistency when you put them into another. It's like Conrad. You know, the thing about Joseph Conrad was Polish, and he spoke Polish, and was born in Poland. And yet he wrote some of the greatest stuff ever written in the English language. It's because he learned a second language, and he thought about it. It was a precise language with him because he learned it. And for that reason, he could write extremely well in an alien language, probably better than he could write in Polish. And that's the way we code with people. I know a lot of people who think very clearly when they're sitting in front of a key, a bug or whatever it might be. But the minute you talk to them, they're quite incoherent. They're quite mute. Have you seen that type? Well, code, I'm not going to go into a whole story on code tonight, but one of the things that you learn about code is that it's all rhythm, it's beat. It's not really specific sound, it's beat and it's rhythm. So if you hear it in total words, sometimes even whole phrases, not letters. That's when you really get good at code. It's like when you listen to somebody speak, you don't have to think in terms of the specific syllables or in terms of the specific words. You just know what a guy's saying. You just know. And that's the way code is. Now, I'll give you an idea of how code sounds, the way it should sound, really. Listen. That's an A. I'll do it again. A B. C. You notice that little Lake Erie swing in there? Now, what is a Lake Erie swing? See, when you listen to a good code operator, he develops a swing. It's just like a person who has a style in speech, a slight accent. So here's a Lake Erie swing for you. If I were to send the words, let's say the letters CQ, if I were to send them the way they should be sent, it would go very clean and without any accent. The Lake Erie swing would do it this way. See the difference? It has a swing, very musical. For example, if you send the word THE, which should be sent like this. I did it very precisely for you there. Here's the way it would be in Lake Erie swing. He goes, so he gets that long diphthong in there. But even code can be in fact, more, I think that code is as distinct as your own fingerprint.